Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing a Numeron board breaker deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this for you guys because this deck was actually suggested to me by one of my patrons, Izzy. And this deck is the ultimate going second deck, playing cards like Raigeki, Harpy's Feather Duster, and Lightning Storm to break your opponent's board so you can go in for game with your Numeron cards. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell in there so you can come part of notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards. Like getting your name description in a single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month you're a patron. And definitely give Izzy some love down in the comments down below for suggesting such an awesome deck. So let's get straight on into this one, guys. So first off, we're going to be playing two copies of Darkhole Dragon. Darkhole Dragon is an amazing 2-of in the deck that has the ability it cannot be destroyed by card effects, and you can only use each of the following effects as card once per turn. That if a monster on the field is destroyed by a card effect that does not target it, basically cards like Darkhole, copies of like Lightning Storm, or even Raigeki, this card can special summon itself from your hand or your graveyard, and during the end phase, if you special summon this card, you get to add Darkhole from your deck to your hand, which is an amazing effect to be able to use just to instantly search Darkhole off this card's ability, so you can use it on the follow-up turn to break your opponent's board and go in for game. I absolutely love that about this card, and it's a really cool card that searches Darkhole. We then play 3 copies of Numeron Wall. Numeron Wall is a definite 3-of in the build because this card helps you get to your copies of your Numeron network extremely easily. We then play 3 copies of Planet Pathfinder. Planet Pathfinder is one of the only normal summons we have in the deck, and this card is really good because you can tribute this card to add a field spell from your deck to your hand, essentially instantly getting you your copy of Numeron Network. We then play 3 copies of Lava Golem. Lava Golem is an amazing board breaker just to be able to tribute 2 of your opponent's monsters to give you a safe target to attack into with your Numeron monsters. This card also is really good because it does get rid of 2 monsters on your opponent's side of the field, which is really big because if your opponent has something that's completely unaffected by card effects, you can still tribute it for a copy of Lava Golem. Tributing another monster on their side of the field plus the monster that's unaffected is very effective at going in for game. We then play 2 copies of Gandarla. Playing kaijus in this deck is really good because they don't protect themselves, and it's really easy to be able to drop, say, a Darkhole afterwards to be able to just destroy your opponent's monsters that they have on the field, including the kaiju, especially if your opponent has a monster that cannot be destroyed by card effects, and it's just really good to be able to play in a board breaker deck, especially a going second deck. We then play 2 copies of Gameciel. Gameciel is really good because it has low attack points, it's very easy to get over, and it's a really good option to give your opponent the turtle, so you can basically just attack into it with your Numeron gates and go in for game. It's also very good in this particular build because it helps you out a lot overall in this deck because it gives you a safe target to drop a copy of, say, Raigeki, Lightning Storm, Darkhole, any of those cards against, so that you can basically just go in for game. This card is really good as a 2-of in the build, and I really like playing these in the deck because it's a great lineup to be able to just tribute over your opponent's monsters so you can go in for game. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, guys, we're going to start with a single copy of Terraforming. Terraforming is an amazing 1-of in this build because you want to be able to get to your copy of Numeron Network as quickly as possible, and this card helps you get to that card because you have copies of Numeron Wall, you have your copies of Planet Pathfinder, and you have 3 copies of Numeron Network, having a bunch of ways to be able to get to this card because this is how you OTK your opponent. This card is amazing because it lets you send your copy of Numeron Calling from your deck to the graveyard so you can summon out all 4 of your Numeron Gate monsters to your side of the field so you can OTK your opponent, and you don't even have to detach materials to activate their abilities, which is amazing to be able to do for those Numeron Gate cards. We then play just 2 copies of Numeron Calling. Numeron Calling is a good 2-of in the deck, but you really only need 2 copies of this card. It's a great card overall in the deck because it helps you summon out all your copies of your Numeron Gates, but you don't want to see this card in your hand because you just want to send it to graveyard off of Numeron Network. We then play 3 copies of Memories of Hope. Memories of Hope is a definite 3-of in this build because if you have all 4 of the Numeron gates on your side of the field, you actually get to draw 4 cards. That is so good about this card, and it's insane how powerful this card is just to dig into the deck to get more board breakers so that you can go in for game. This card is amazing as a 3-of in the deck and helps you dig for different cards that you need. We then play a single copy of Called by the Grave. Called by the Grave is really good in this deck as a 1-of just to make sure that your plays are going to go through and you don't get hand trapped. We then play a single copy of Harpy's Feather Duster. Harpy's Feather Duster is an amazing board breaker just to deal with your opponent's back row so that you can go in for an attack safely without having to deal with back row. We then play 2 copies of Lightning Storm. Lightning Storm is also like your copy of Feather Duster. I usually use this card just to deal with back row, basically playing like 3 copies of Feather Duster. The only downside of this card is that you can only activate it if you control no face-up cards, which is super easy to do because you just activate this card first to deal with your opponent's back row. But it can also destroy attack position monsters that your opponent controls, which is pretty good, but usually I just use it for back row. We then play 3 copies of Raigeki. Raigeki is why I play the copies of Lightning Storm just for back row, because I can deal with my opponent's monsters extremely easily with Raigeki, just destroying all my opponent's monsters that they have on the field. We then play 3 copies of Dark Hole. Dark Hole is amazing as a 3-of in the deck, and it's also searchable off your copy of Dark Hole Dragon, making this card a definite 3-of in the deck, just to destroy every monster on the field. And this is actually the card that you use the most in this build as a board breaker to be able to use with Dark Hole Dragon. But this card is really good to be able to drop against the opponent to make sure that you don't have anything on the field to be able to go in with Numeron Network, which is just so cool. We then play 3 copies of Limiter Removal. Limiter Removal is insane, especially if you draw multiple copies of this card to be able to combine with your Numeron Gates, because they're all machine monsters, so you can double their attack points. And even if you just see 1 copy of this, one of your searchers for your field spell, and say a Dark Hole, you're probably going to win the game, which is just absolutely amazing. If you see Raigeki or Dark Hole plus this, and basically any of the searchers for the field spell, you just basically search field spell, and then once you do, you activate Dark Hole, destroy all the monsters on the field, activate Numeron Network, send Numeron Calling, summon all 4 of the gates to your side of the field, drop Limiter Removal, increase them to 2,000 each, and swing for 8k, and just win the game, which is just super cool about this card. And it's super easy to OTK your opponent. It's really funny when you open up multiple copies of this card, though. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Torrential Tribute. We wanted to play as many board breakers as possible in this build, and I feel like 3 copies of Torrential Tribute is really good just to set this card to your side of the field, flip it up, and just destroy all the opponent's monsters that they have. It does destroy yours, but that's fine because we can just activate Numeron Network and summon out all of our gates again, because we can summon out basically them twice since we do play 2 copies of Numeron Calling. But this card is just really good overall in the deck, just to make sure that you're going to be able to OTK your opponent and stop them in their tracks so you can swing in for game, especially if they're trying to establish a board. This card is really good in the deck as a 3-0. You can play 3 copies of Evenly Matched if you want to, but you will lose your battle phase, which is why I didn't play Evenly Matched over this card, but it is a good option if you want to make sure that you're dealing with back row. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, guys, we're going to start with a single copy of number C1, Numeron Chaos Gate Sonya. This card is a really good 1-of in the deck because you can make this card on top of number 1, which is just really cool. This card is great in this build because it has the ability, once per turn during your next standby phase, after this card was banished, you can actually special summon this banished card, and if you do, and you have Numeron Networks on the field, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to the combined attack of all their banished XZ monsters, which is amazing to be able to do, because if it's XZ summon, it banishes all monsters on the field, again, board breaking your opponent, which is just so cool to be able to use with this card. We then play 2 copies of Numeron Gate number 1. We play 2 copies of Numeron Gate number 2, 2 copies of Numeron Gate number 3, and 2 copies of Numeron Gate number 4. Now, all of these monsters share the exact same effect. They are basically mirror images of each other, which is fine because we're basically just using these cards to OTK our opponent, and they all share the ability that cannot be destroyed by battle. And at the end of the damage step, if this card battled an opponent's monster, double the attack points of all Numeron monsters that you currently control until the end of this turn, which is insane just to be able to double their attack points so that you can keep swinging, going from 1,000 to 2,000 to 4,000 to 8,000. If you have something like limit removal, it goes all the way up to 16,000, which is absolutely crazy. We then play a single copy of Sky Crisis Typhon. This card is great as a 1-of in the deck because it's so easy to make, and it's a really good card because it bounces a monster off the field, and it's just such a powerful card to be able to make in this deck, and basically in any deck. We play a single copy of Underworld Goddess just in case we need to board wipe our opponent, get rid of one card off the field. We play a single copy of Megaclops because you can link away 3 of the gates to be able to make this card, which is a pretty good option. 1 copy of Avermax. Avermax is just really easy to make in this build and is an amazing card to be able to summon to your side of the field using your Numeron gates. We then play a single copy of Skull Dread, just in case we need to dig into the deck for more cards. It's a good option because it does draw 4 and then put 3 back, which is just really good. We then play a single copy of Apollousa. Apollousa is what we use if we go first. We just summon out this card to put basically 4 negates on the field, because you get 1 more summon after you send Numeron Calling to the graveyard, and this is our 1 more summon, so we can basically just have 4 monster negates on the field, and maybe back it up with a Torrential Tribute, and then follow it up on the next turn with like a Feather Duster or a Lightning Storm if we have the field, which is amazing to be able to do, just to be able to deal with your opponent's field. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy. This deck is super fun to be able to play. If you guys have never played a Numeron going second board breaker deck, you should definitely give this deck a try. It's amazing how many board breakers you can actually fit into this deck, because there's so many flexible spots in this build, especially with the new Dark Hole Dragon, which is just such a cool boss monster. It's such a cool card. I love the artwork, and it just works really well in this deck. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.